satisfaction without the fight. A man has limits, oh, so they say, but I never listen. Did it my way. I'm gonna take what's mine. I paid my dues. I dare you to walk a mile in these shoes. The beat in my soul just keeps getting louder. Give me some of that power.
Sam's doing his thing. And you know something's going on. You told him, I don't want to be a part of this. Mm-hmm. So how does it go from you telling Sam, I don't want any part of this, to you being involved?
Yeah, so I think where it gets confusing is my part of the involvement is after the fact. After Sam gets busted in February, they have him being interrogated. And at some point in the interrogation process, they ask Sam, like, hey, do you have anything in the house that we should know about, like drugs or guns or anything? And so obviously Sam agrees and admits, like, yes, I do have a gun and I have some drugs. And so during that day, I was actually taking a food course, like a food class, a food handlers class at the Department of Health that specific day. I dropped Sam off to the airport and I immediately rushed over to Halava to participate in this class so I could get certified, because I've been doing like a lot of planning to like start a business, and a lot of it was just more manifesting and just a lot of planning and writing in my notebook and in my calendars and like really like organizing and situating things. So, I drop him off to do whatever he has to do for the day. I continue to do whatever I have to do for the day. And that's kind of how we operated, So I'm in my class, I pass my test, I get my certified card from the Department of Health. And, I'm actually excited. I'm happy. I want to share it with him. So I text it to him. He responds. He's like, happy for you, babe. Have a good day, all that stuff. So I'm like, okay, cool. I leave the class and I'm like on the way to my cousin's house because Sam isn't home. I'm alone. I don't have my kids at this time. His kids isn't with us at that time. So I'm like, okay, just go and enjoy the day. So I head over to my cousin's house, and that was kind of like a typical move, like a daily move. I would always like stop at the cousin's house and like hang out. So it was like any normal day, did my business, stopped at the house, talking story, hanging out with my aunt and my cousin. And, I try to call Sam. It's like, because that whole time after my class, like there was no communication with him. So I try to call him and he doesn't answer, which is already unusual, but then again, it does happen from time to time. So I didn't think much of it. And then I just was like, he'll call me back later. So I end up like a couple hours go by and I'm like, oh, he didn't call me back. So I tried to call him back again. And that's when I was like, something's fucking wrong. Like he didn't answer me or called me back. So hang up the phone. I immediately check his location on my phone, and his location is at Kona Police Department.
No. So so let me back up a little bit then. So at this point, so we're talking about Sam caught that flight to Big Island, stops in Maui, right? And makes it to Big Island.
I believe it's Molokai, Maui, then Big Island.
Okay. So Molokai, Maui.
Because I think he updated me, like just landed in Molokai, headed to Maui. And then I believe he was like, I'm jumping on my flight soon. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm jumping into my class. So we was able to communicate earlier in the morning.
At his stops, basically.
Basically, yeah.
Did you know what was going on?
Yeah, I did know what he was doing. Did I know how much was in his bag? No. So there was things that I did know and a lot of things that I didn't know. And so as far as how much that he buys and stuff, I didn't know. And as far as how much he's taking with him on the plane, he didn't tell me.
So February 10th, so yesterday, February 10th, he was on that flight. You were in your class. What kind of class was it?
It was a food handlers class.
Oh, okay. Food handlers class. So you're at a food handlers class, February 10th. From the interview, I remember he got busted on this control, but they had been watching him the load before then.
Oh, probably so. Yeah.
When was that?
Because they claim the investigation started in June of 2019. So it could either have started in June of 2019 because that's when the first person got busted and that's when the initial investigation started, or that was either when they had their first control buy with Sam. Like I can't indicate what it was, but it's definitely either or. The first person that got busted and dropped Sam's name, so the investigation started in June, or that was the first controlled buy. It's like common sense, right? You have to, you can piece it together just with basic information. So just by that dates of the investigation, I know that it's either that's when the first person got busted or that's when the first control buy purchase happened. And so like, I don't really know the actual indication or cause.
The fact that you don't know leads me to believe that that was when the initial dude got popped.
That's what I'm assuming. I kind of went through everything also like an investigator.
Right. You know, and typically that stuff would have to have been on the AFIs, which means you would have received that paperwork. Yeah.
And so it didn't really say so-and-so got busted on June of 2020. Like it doesn't say, 2019, it doesn't say that. But just by learning what I've learned through this process and gaining all of this knowledge, it has to be either or. Like there's like no way around it. It's A or B. Like that's it.
So we don't know, but my guess is that's when the first dude got popped, when this entire investigation really started. And then it led to Sam somewhere towards the end of 2018, right? And then, 2019. 2019. And then 2020, January of 20, or February 10th of 2020 is when he got arrested. So you're at your class and that's early morning?
Yeah, it was immediately after I dropped him off to the airport. And I swear I took him to the airport maybe like 6:30 or 7. And the class probably started at like 9 or something. It was immediately after because I went from the airport to my class.
Okay, so then you go to your class and you finish your class. How long was your class?
A good couple hours.
So a couple hours later, you finish your class and then you text Sam. And so by 11 o'clock or noon, by midday, he responds like, good job, proud of you. And everything's all good. So noon, he still hadn't got popped.
The kicker was at 1 o'clock when I initially knew something's wrong because he has not called me back twice. I think I called him when I was leaving the class or like on the way to my cousin's house, or maybe when I just got there. And then like an hour later, I tried calling him back and nothing. So that was the kicker. I remember looking at the time, it was like 1 o'clock. And I was like, something is fucking wrong. So because he's not answering, now I'm going to check his location to see where he is to indicate how wrong it really was.
Wow. So from the time you finish your class, which he was available and text you back, 11 or something.
Like I literally, they announced my name, Miss Silva. I got up, grabbed my card. I had to sign off on the book. He gave me my card. I walked back to my desk sat down, grabbed my phone, and I texted him the picture of the card, and I was like, I just passed my class.
Right.
It was immediate that I was trying to like communicate with him.
And by 1 o'clock, he was already at the Kona police station.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you don't hear from him for how long?
Yeah. So because I check his location, like he's at the police station. I'm freaking out, right? Like I run to my aunt. I'm like, Sam, they have Sam at the police station.
What are you thinking? Do you know?
I know he's in deep shit. And I don't have a thought in my mind to where like they grabbed him at the airport or they swarmed him with the friend. Like I none of that is crossing my mind. I just know like he's at the police station.
But
like
you're thinking it's for drugs.
Yeah, like for sure. Like I just didn't know what happened, right? So that's where my mind is going. Like what happened? How did it happen? How can I help him? And so I called the police station.
You did?
Oh yeah. I called the police station and I'm like, and, you know, I'm looking for my husband. His name is Sam Kapoi. I'm just wondering if you guys have him, you know, incarcerated and being held in the prison. And then they're like, oh no. First they're like, oh, give me a minute. You know, they're probably checking on the computer. And then they immediately, it's a man. He's like, oh no, we don't have anybody by that name. And I'm aggressive, right? So I'm like, well, that's funny because should I get the news involved and the lawyers involved? Because I'm checking his location. His property, his phone is there. I know he has his phone. So you're lying and telling me he's not there. Should I go find somebody to get involved to make sure that he's there or not? And so he's like, okay, I'm going to have the sergeant calls you. So immediately, you know, we hang up the phone and the sergeant calls me and, you know, he tells me like, you know, Mr. Silva, we have Mr. Kapoi there here. And, you know, he's being held under investigation. We cannot release any information to you. But we can definitely, right now, we can confirm that he's here. So that's my first confirmation that he is there, aside of his location being the indicator.
So what's going through your mind?
So I immediately call a friend. I call a cop friend and I'm like, hey, like get into the computer system and find out what's happening with Sam. So he jumps in the computer system, he checks it and he says, Sam is being held under Class A felony. Under investigation.
So your worst nightmares at this point, there's no more serious felony than Class A other than murder.
So I kick into gear. I call Michael Green's office. I explain what's going on to his receptionist, and she schedules me an appointment for 4:30 p.m. that afternoon. So I'm like on my way to town. Like I don't even go home. Like I go straight to town. And I'm waiting in like this parking lot in Kalihi, waiting for my appointment at 4:30 because at this point, I'm trying to get anybody to help me figure out what's going on. Even at this point in time, I call Sam's friend Leland, Dog Chapman's son, and I'm sharing with Leland like, hey, something's happening. We need to help Sam right now. And so, you know, of course, Leland is doing whatever he can. And I'm, in the meantime, just waiting for my appointment with Michael Green. While I'm in the parking lot waiting for my appointment, so I could just head over down the street and make my appointment, I get a call from a special agent. He's like, "Hey, Mrs. Silva, we're actually headed back to Oahu, and we want to meet up with you, and we want to meet you at your house, because Mr. Kapoi said there's things in your house that we need to retrieve." So I'm like, okay, at this point, I have nothing to hide. I'm not worried about anything. My biggest concern at this point is helping Sam, finding out a way to help him. So, they gave me the breakdown. They're like, hey, we have to meet somewhere central and neutral. You will then drive home and we will follow you. They give me specific directions. Like, when we get to your house, you cannot enter the house alone. Somebody will meet you at the door. You will then open up your door, walk into your house, and then we'll go from there. And so, I'm sharing with them, like, okay, like, we live in a really nice neighborhood. I don't want my neighbors feeling uncomfortable, or, like, I don't want it to cause a scene. Like, can we minimal, like, police activity at my house? And they're like, oh yeah, it's just going to be like 4 people. So it just looked like a family gathering. I'm like, okay, cool. I can, agree to that. I get to my house, like, as I'm pulling up, there's like a gang load of men just walking towards my house. Now, visitor parking is like down the road, like around the bend. So it's at least 10 homes away. So can you imagine this entourage of all Black uniform, vested up, badges out, like walking towards me, I'm like in my driveway, walking towards me, and there's already a couple at my door. So there's an entourage coming, couple at my door, and then the ones that just pulled up behind me in the car. Gang load. So I get to the door, I open the door. They come in, and they're all like coming in. They go into the garage. They're like hawking this house. They're like turning on lights, looking around, like, because I get there, it's like 7-ish, somewhere between the 7 and 8 o'clock hour. Sun is down, or definitely on the way down, and it's getting dark. So they're like, can you show me to your bedroom? Show them to the bedroom. Show me to your closet. Show them to the closet. How our floor plan of our house looks like. When you walk into the entryway, there's a kitchen, dining room, and our master bedroom is off the corner. So it was like immediately right into the bedroom, and we had a walk-in closet. That when you walked into the bedroom, it's to the right. So once I show them the closet, they immediately look into the closet and they see what they're looking for. They immediately grab like the gun case, they're bringing it out, they're putting it on the bed, they're taking pictures. They're like rummaging through his stuff, basically trying to find what Sam told them was there. During that same time of them looking for the gun, finding the gun and looking through his stuff, they come back outside and they ask me, like, whose gun is this? And at that point, like, in my mind, I haven't even processed anything, like, to stop and think and just say the truth. I immediately, I'm like, it's my gun. Like that, like the stupidest response anybody could ever say. Like, I said it. And at that time, like, my brain is like, maybe I can remove some like stress or pressure or something happening to him worse than what's already happened. And they'll let me go for it. They'll just let me go. Not even thinking clearly. And they're like, really? Like, is this your gun? And I'm like, yeah, it's my gun. Oh, where did you buy it from? Oh, just off the street. Off the street? Like, where? Oh, it's from random person. Like that's my exact answer. It's random person. How much did you buy it for? Oh, $1,000. You know, just random shit. Like, as in my whole entire life, I've never walked the streets and had this random person had a gun that was up for sale. Never happened. Like, as bad as they say our community is, it really isn't. That kind of shit does not happen. But I fucking lied and I said that that's what it was. So I guess that was the actual most concrete thing that tied me into the case. First initial of everything. So, you know, they give me this form. They're like, here you go. You need to sign this form. This is a surrender to release. This is not saying that this is your gun. You know, like they indicate everything. They're like, this is not saying anything that you're going to jail, that we can use it against you. They list all of these things. This is just a surrender to release, saying that the gun is here and you're signing it over to us. And so I signed the surrender to release. And that's pretty much my formal initiation into the whole fucking conspiracy case.
So when you had called Michael Green, had anyone talked to you yet? Or was it just you put in a call and you hadn't really?
I spoke to only the receptionist, gave them the rundown. They also gave me the rundown. Tell your husband, don't say anything, but how can I tell him when he's in custody? Right? How can I relay that sort of information if I have no way of communicating with him?
Not knowing that he was, not only was he saying something.
Yeah, not knowing he was actually in an interview process or an interrogation room. I had no idea what was happening.
Saying everything. He was just.
I had no idea what was going on. I knew that I was just trying to help and protect him. So while I initiate that meeting with Michael Green, they tell me, just wait. Mr. Green is busy today. We will open up a spot for you at 4:30. In the meantime, that specific day, in the meantime, while I'm waiting, I get a call from the federal agents.
Oh.
So they're telling me I have to meet them at the house. Me not having any knowledge with this federal system, I should have just waited for the meeting with the attorney. Because then I wouldn't have lied and said it was my gun. I wouldn't have been inserted myself into a predicament that wasn't mine to begin with. And 3, Michael Green would have been able to get to Sam immediately and told him, shut his fucking mouth. And don't say anything, right? You don't answer any questions. You're not obligated. I'm your lawyer now, and you just shut up. So for me, it was like, they're telling me I need to go, so I need to go. And I just felt like, do what they tell you to do. Because I felt like they are the law. How do I tell federal agents no? How do you do that without having no knowledge, no background, no experience or history or encounter with them? How do you know these things? Your average person does not know this stuff. You just think an officer is telling you what you to do, and you have to do what they tell you to do. So that's what I did.
You said there's a bunch of officers there. How many do you think were there, if you had to guess?
I would say 15.
And what were they made up of?
They were CRU.
So HPD,
CRU, and I knew one of them. and 4, maybe 5 was federal agents, Homeland Security.
So at the house, you got HPD and Homeland Security. No FBI, no ICE, ATF. And who was your contact? Was that HPD or was it Homeland Security?
No, it's Homeland Security.
What day of the week was this? Was it
I don't know.
Weekday or a weekend?
Weekday, yeah, because we had a flight to Colombia the day before Valentine's Day, which was the 13th. And like the more I thought about it, it was like they probably thought they needed to grab us before the Colombia trip because maybe they thought we were going to Colombia to get drugs or something. Why then, right? Like what prompt them or trigger them to get us at that moment? It's because we was going out of the country. Like we were scheduled and planned to leave the country.
So the 10th was a Monday. You guys are scheduled to leave on Thursday to go to Colombia. What was that trip for?
It was actually like a work trip for Sam. He was scheduled to do something. I don't really remember.
What was he doing
and
at
it was
the time?
a wedding.
Like,
it was a wedding. It was a wedding.
so it was like video?
No, it wasn't video. So it definitely was something to do with like having this whole pono before the ceremony with the husband and wife, and Sam's particular group that he was involved in. So Sam knew this boxing promoter. This boxing promoter was like, hey, Sam, I'm looking for somebody to counsel this husband and wife before the wedding. And so Sam was like, oh, okay, hit up my friend. So Sam referred him to this person. And, and they initiated everything, but somehow he still wanted Sam to come because Sam is his friend. So Sam was like sure, like me and my wife will be there. And so this was like a really, really big event, like a really big wedding. I truly don't even know who it was. It was like some president of the boxing league or something. Like I don't quote me on it, but it's something to that degree, like a really big wedding in Colombia. And so it was just like a random thing. Like it wasn't like we planned, like, okay, we're gonna book our flights, we're going to Colombia, we're gonna do this, that. Like it wasn't. It was like something random.
Okay, this is February 10th, 2020. You haven't seen Sam. They just called you and said, we're back on Oahu. Meanwhile, Sam is where? He's in Kapolei?
I believe Sam, at this point, they flew over with Sam, and Sam was in another vehicle.
Oh, you think on scene?
Yeah, because Sam shows up afterwards.
Oh, so Sam is probably at visitor parking.
Yeah, most likely that's where he was. Because once I got to my door, I didn't go back out to see what was happening outside.
Okay.
So I still haven't had that conversation with him about when he came in, where did they park, where did he walk from? Like, I don't even know.
Okay, so then you sign that release form, which is a chain of custody, for them to take it, to show that where they got it from. You acknowledge that it was okay for them to take it, basically. And they take it into evidence. This is about what time? 7? You said they got there at 7. So what, this is about 8?
Yeah, so it probably lasted till about like 8, 9, maybe 10. I don't even know.
But it's
I didn't
dark.
touch
It's
my
dark.
phone. It's dark. It's pitch black dark. Yeah, I still don't know what time they left.
Are there blue lights and stuff on the cars?
No. There's no blue lights outside of my house. There's no cars outside of my house when I show up. There's two guys waiting in the dark by my door. And I see this entourage coming from up the street. That's what I see.
And while they were searching and doing all this stuff, where were you, inside or outside?
I was inside waiting in the dining room by the kitchen with this whole entourage of CRU.
Okay. So they're all waiting with you. Are they asking you questions?
Yeah, very minimal questions. Nothing serious. Just like where you came from, like you okay, like just be calm. You know, at this point, I'm like getting so antsy and anxiety. I'm like telling them, you know, you guys need to leave. I need to shower. Like I was out of my house all day. Like I was, you know, like from early in the morning, like I need to shower. Like I'm rushing them at this point to get out of my house. So I'm making like, and it really was an excuse. I really wanted to relax and I really wanted to shower. It was a draining day. You guys got what you wanted and it's just time to go.
Were you thinking that you were going to see Sam?
No. They did allow him to call me though.
Oh, really? So while they're there and you're in the dining room.
No, while I'm in the parking lot before I get to the house, they allow you to call me. Yeah. And so before I even get a call from them, like he calls me.
Oh, really? So before they call you to say, you got to meet us at the house and let us in and all that, you get a call from Sam.
Yeah. Sam is like, babe, don't worry. Cause I'm already like crying. Like so what happened was the reason why they allowed Sam to call me is because I was pressuring the police station. Like I was honestly, I was like harassing them at this point. So they went in there and they told Sam like, hey, your wife is calling. And like she's not stopping. So they all kind of had a laugh about it. And Sam was like, oh yeah, it sounds just like her. So, you know, I remember that verbatim. Sam told me like they all had a good laugh about it because it was funny to them, right? Whatever the fuck it was, whatever.
Because you're being a bulldog and trying to get what you got to get and you're not letting them go. And Sam was like, yeah, that sounds like Tyrell.
Yeah.
So he calls you. What does he say on that phone call?
He's like, babe, don't worry. Like, it's okay. I'm okay. You know, he's like, don't cry. Like, don't stress out. He's just at this point trying to coach me through what I was going through. My anxieties, stress, hurt, like sad, like, because I didn't know what was happening at this point. What was going to happen to him. I was going through a lot of things.
So then the agent calls you, arranges the search warrant, comes to the house. They search the house.
Nobody read me any search warrant. Nobody read me any search warrant.
And then they right away go to the closet in the bedroom.
They immediately guide me to the bedroom, guide me to the closet.
And then they took what was it, AR-15?
Yes.
And then you said a bag?
Sam, yeah. So Sam had like a bag of like, it was bullets or it looked like bullets, but it wasn't bullets. He claimed it was like a cleaner or something. And so like he actually had a box of bullets, and then it was like a clear box, like a clear plastic box with blue bullets that he said wasn't bullets. Like it was so weird. So they were just pulling all of this stuff off because it was like at the top of the closet on the shelf. So they were just pulling all of this stuff off.
And then you had said earlier that he said that he had some drugs at the house.
Yeah. So they were rummaging through all of his things and they found it in a bag.
Was there anything else from any other rooms that they took out?
No, they kind of just peeked in the rooms to check what was in the rooms, but not as far as searching any other part of the house. No, like we had a shared closet, so one side was his, one side was mine. Like they didn't even go over to mine and like rummage through my stuff. Like they knew exactly where to go for what. I know at one point they even asked me, like, oh, where's the bag of drugs? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, you have to ask Sam. You know, like I don't really know.
Okay, and then they leave. What do they tell you when they leave? What's the last thing they tell you?
We'll be in touch.
And so you never got arrested.
No.
And you're at home now.
Yes, I'm at home.
All the kids are with their other parents.
Mm-hmm.
When does Sam come home?
At this point, Sam comes in before they leave.
Oh, so they brought Sam in. What was that like?
That was very like surreal. Like I could not believe it was happening. They brought him in. We was able to like comfort each other. And then they say like, we're gonna like separate you guys. So they separated us.
And this is like basically right at the end?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Why'd they separate you?
I don't know.
And then did they take Sam with them?
No, Sam stayed downstairs with the big crew, the big entourage of the CRU. And I went upstairs into the living room. And it was just me and 3 federal agents. So okay. Maybe they just didn't want me and Sam to connect, to somehow like exchange information, or
yeah, they probably had some things they wanted to ask Sam. They probably saw some things in the house that they wanted to ask Sam about, and or some of them came up with some ideas or were like, hey, what about this? I noticed this, or remember when Sam said this, ask him if that's here at the house. And yeah, they also probably had to ask him about things that you had said when he wasn't there, and they don't want him to coach you. So like whatever you had said to them could be minor utterances that you don't think had anything to do with things, or it could have been like things that you said, like the closet's right here, or, you know, I don't know, you'll have to ask Sam where the drugs are, or whatever those are. And then whatever they had to ask Sam, they didn't want you to be there. And they probably wanted to tell Sam what the plan was and give him the opportunity to tell you on his own. So it's probably a lot to it. And then, so Sam's there, you're upstairs. When do they bring you back down?
When they're ready to leave. Oh, actually, they bring Sam up.
Okay.
They allow Sam up. And they say, like, you know, we'll be in touch with you. They're mainly talking to Sam, saying, like, you know, so-and-so will be contacting you, and this is our number, and, you know, exchange the numbers and cards, and that was pretty much the end. And me and Sam sat upstairs in our living room at that point, like just like lost for words. It was like the most awkward moment of silence we've ever had together. Like we was literally just in each other's arms, like hugging each other, and we didn't say one word.
For how long?
For a good 10 minutes.
So what time is it now when they leave?
Yeah, it has to be somewhere in the 9 or 10 o'clock hour.
So what's that night like? Do you guys stay home? Do you make phone calls? Are you telling anybody? I remember Sam had mentioned
we don't even touch our phones. It was really like as if somebody died in our house. Dead silence. We took a shower. We laid down. we just laid together. It wasn't like we was kissing or in the mood to get intimate. It was just like dead. Like we literally just laid and comforted each other, like in a hug, and we just went to sleep. We didn't say a word. It was like the weirdest thing. Like I think about it now, and it was just like the weirdest moment.